If you're an agent with a few years of experience in the business and you've been struggling during this recent shift in the market, then keep watching because today we're going to unveil the #1 tool to turn your real estate career around.
Hi, this is Real Estate with Alyse and Jay.
And that's Jay, and I'm Alyse. If you're a realtor, we'd love to go more in depth with you so you can become your local market expert. Please feel free to call, text, or email us. Our information's in the description. We'd love to chat with you.
So today, the first kind of big topic we're going to go over is mindset and what it takes to be an entrepreneur in real estate. So I'm just going to start off with a quote from Bill Gates, and I'll kind of paraphrase it. But he says, most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and greatly underestimate what they could accomplish in 10 years. And that's how this kind of story applies, because we have a friend that's a top producer and he's been in real estate for a long time. He's been the #1 or #2 agent for like 10 or 15 years. And when you ask how he did it, he just humbly says that he's been doing it longer than you have. And that's so true. It goes directly to that quote. You can't compare your year 4 or year 5 to our year 15 or 20 to his year 25 or 30. And that's why mindset is so important with this business. You might not be rookie of the year your first year, and you might not be a top producer in the first 2 or 3 years. But if you keep going and plugging away and working at it and making progress, in 10 years, you'll probably find that you'll look up and you'll be vastly ahead of where you thought you'd be when you started. And that leads us to another important mindset aspect for agents, is that we need to understand that we're entrepreneurs when we get into this business. And by definition, that means that we're taking on some risks. And so from what I've seen over the years, the biggest risks are that we don't have a plan, and then we don't have any guardrails in place or a punishment, really, right? So when you go to work at your job, someone has made a plan for you already. And that's why they hired you, to do a specific thing that they needed, right? And so your day is scheduled, your week is scheduled, your month, your year. And if you don't follow that plan, then you might get a few slaps on the wrist here and there, but eventually that punishment is going to be that you're going to end up without a check. But when you become an entrepreneur, when we get into real estate, we don't think about it that way. And so what happens is we get involved, and then one day leads to the next. And the next thing you know, we're like, okay, well, I'm going to go have coffee with this lender and maybe I'll get some business from that. Okay, I'm going to go sit in this class and learn a few things. Maybe I'll get some business from that. And well, today I've got to take my dog to the vet and I've got to go wash the car and stuff like that. So I'll catch up tomorrow. And then eventually you look up and it's been 6 months and you don't have any commissions coming in, and the stress of the finances is starting to hit. And now you're worried about how are you going to pay the bills? Where are you going to get your next client from? All that kind of stuff. And really what we need is to have a plan, and we need to create that for ourselves. And maybe part of that plan is getting a mentor or a coach to help us create that plan and give us kind of a path to follow. That's also a good way to have some accountability and some sort of reaction for what you're doing or not doing. Anyway, you slice it in real estate. If we don't do these things, we're going to end up at the same point that we talked about earlier. We're just going to end up without a paycheck, right?
Most agents that we know get into the business for a handful of reasons. One, they want to be their own boss, make their own schedule. 2, they want to be in control of how much money they can make. 3, they want to help others a lot of times because they had a bad experience with an agent. And 4, they wanted to be a real estate investor or they're already investing. Now, these aren't all the reasons I'd say they'd get into the business, but 95 out of 100 realtors would say they have some sort of combination of these on their list of why they became a licensed real estate agent. I've never met a newly licensed agent that told me they got in the business because they want to generate more leads to convert them into clients.
Did you know that 87% of realtors fail out of the business within the first 5 years? And the majority are leaving around the 2.5 year mark, because it's kind of the put up or shut up time, because that's when you have to pay all your continuing education and get relicensed and do all those things. And if you're not making enough money, a lot of people just say, let me quit while I'm ahead at that point, and they get out of the business. So that's an interesting stat. But on the other hand, most agents are great when they're in front of a client. In fact, the NAR has a yearly survey, and they've been doing this survey. I've seen it as long as I've been an agent, for decades now. And basically, when they ask recent buyers and sellers about their experience, and 90% of them will say that their agent did a great job and they would happily recommend them or use them again in their next transaction. But in reality, only about 10% actually end up using their same agent again on their next transaction. And so why do you think that is? And what does that tell us about this situation? So if we were great once we have a client to work with, but 87% of realtors are failing out in the first few years, what that tells me is that we need help learning how to generate leads and how to do it on a consistent basis. And now there's only about 4 different methods or ways that you can generate leads. And that's prospecting, which could be like cold calling, door knocking, circle dialing, something like that. There's marketing. You could be on social media or sending out postcards or something like that. And that's kind of building your brand. There's advertising, which is kind of like marketing, but more of a paid for situation. And think about like Facebook leads or Instagram leads, or even like buying Zillow leads, something like that. That would be a form of advertising. And then there's networking, right? And that could be as simple as going to a social event and meeting and greeting with people, or you putting on a home buyer seminar or running an open house or doing some sort of organized networking event. And either way, the great thing about our business is that when you're talking with somebody, they're going to ask you what you do. And when you say real estate, at some point later, or maybe immediately, they're going to ask you, oh, well, how's the market? And then that's kind of your cue to start talking to them about it, right? So it's an easy conversation to get into, which is what makes networking fun and productive. Another interesting stat is that 90% of agents get their first transaction from helping a friend or family member, or from a referral from that friend or family member. So if you're looking at those different ways of generating leads, marketing and networking are going to be your fastest route to a transaction. And they're also usually the least expensive route to get there as well.
The fortune is in the follow-up. And most sales happen between the 5th and 12th follow-up. And most agents get so confused that they don't properly follow up. By the second or third time they try to follow up, they're done if it doesn't work. Which means they're really, really going to miss out. So it just becomes easier and less stressful just not to follow up. And it gets better. If you have a plan on who to follow up with, that's where the fortune is.
And here's the number one tool that a real estate agent needs to be effective. And that tool is that we all need a database.
Ooh, so exciting.
Yay, database. So every top producer has a database, and Alyse can attest to it. But once we built out our database, we started attracting leads that called us. We didn't have to chase them down anymore. We were able to plan our follow-ups because we had an organized way to know who and when to follow up with. Were they somebody that we just met? Was it somebody who just started the process? Maybe they're asking some questions about buying or selling. Or was it somebody that we're just trying to stay top of mind in case they know somebody down the road that's looking to buy or sell? So those are all different people to follow up with and different ways to follow up with them. But if we don't have that database organized in a way that we know who these people are, we're never going to be able to catch up and keep up with all of that in our heads, right? And I can tell you the proof is in the pudding. For us, our lives have drastically changed for the better once we started a database and implementing that. I mean, we made more money, we were working less time, our income was more predictable. It was definitely less stressful because we weren't just running around trying to figure out what to do next. We had a plan, we knew what to do. Plus we had a pipeline full. So that made things a little bit easier to see, a bright spot at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. Yeah. The stress was one of the biggest things for us, trying to figure out where the next deal was going to come from and chasing our heads around. If you're a realtor and you'd like some help with this or just like to discuss it further, our information in the description. Again, feel free to call, text, or email us. We would love to help.
Yeah, that's right. And thanks for watching. And as we like to say,
keep Austin weird
and keep San Antonio cool.